The chapel doors flew open with a bang that echoed like a gunshot through the stained-glass hush, my mother's voice slicing the air. "Stop. We can't do this without Alex. He's out today." Jason's hand tightened in mine, his eyes locking onto the intruder as if she'd just yanked the vows right out of our throats. And in that frozen heartbeat, I saw my entire future splintering under the weight of a ghost I thought we'd buried years ago. I was Christopher Hayes, 32 years old, standing at the altar of St. Mary's in downtown Seattle, the city I'd fled to 5 years back to escape the suffocating grip of my family's expectations in rural Oregon. Rain pattered against the leaded windows like impatient fingers, mirroring the storm churning in my gut. Jason, my Jason, with his easy laugh that could melt glaciers and eyes the color of Puget Sound after a storm, squeezed my hand so hard it hurt, a silent anchor in the chaos. We'd planned this wedding down to the last detail. The wildflowers from Pike Place Market woven into the pews, our playlist of indie folk tunes humming softly in the background, and a guest list trimmed to the friends who'd stuck by us through the coming-out wars and the late-night fights over whether love like ours could ever outrun blood ties. But blood has a way of crashing parties uninvited. My mother, Evelyn Hayes, stood there in the doorway, drenched from the downpour, her silver-streaked hair plastered to her forehead like a crown of defeat. Behind her loomed my father, Robert, his face a thundercloud of that old-school stoicism, arms crossed over his flannel shirt as if he could physically block the ceremony from proceeding. And trailing them, wide-eyed and fidgeting with the hem of her sundress, was my little sister, Mia, 16 now, and caught in the crossfire of their outdated crusade. "Christopher," Mom gasped, clutching her purse like a shield. "The warden called this morning. Alex is being released early, good behavior. He's on a bus right now, heading straight here. We have to wait. This family's been torn apart long enough without you rushing into this. The word landed like a slap, reducing our 2 years of stolen weekends in the Cascades, the quiet promises whispered over takeout Thai in our Capitol Hill apartment, to some impulsive fever dream. Jason's jaw clenched, his best man, our mutual friend Tyler from the coffee shop where we'd met, stepping forward with a protective glare that could curdle milk. The 20 or so guests, mostly Jason's artsy crowd from the gallery scene, a smattering of my old college buddies who'd flown in from Portland, shifted uncomfortably, murmurs rippling like the rain outside. "Dad, Mom," I said, my voice steadier than I felt, stepping down from the altar with Jason's hand still locked in mine. "This isn't about Alex. This is about us. We've waited long enough." Dad's eyes, those steel-gray eyes that had stared down logging crews and bar fights back in Klamath Falls, narrowed. "Boy, your brother spent 5 years in that hellhole because of choices like this. Fights, regrets, the kind that land you behind bars. You think we raised you to throw away everything for? For what? A phase? Alex will be here by noon. We're family, Chris. We wait. A phase." The word twisted in my chest like barbed wire. Alex, my big brother, the golden boy who'd taught me to fish in the Rogue River and sneak beers from Dad's cooler, had gone down for manslaughter at 27. A bar brawl in Portland, some drunk redneck hurling slurs at a guy Alex was protecting? The details had always been fuzzy, buried under layers of family shame and court documents we never discussed. 5 years in Oregon State Penitentiary for a swing that cracked a skull. Good behavior got him out early, apparently. But waiting? On our wedding day? It felt like they were dragging his ghost in to haunt me, to remind me that love in our bloodline came with chains. Jason pulled me aside, his breath warm against my ear as the organist awkwardly paused mid-note. "Chris, we don't have to do this. Elope. Say screw it to the whole circus." His voice was low, laced with that Brooklyn edge he'd never quite shaken, even after a decade on the West Coast. Jason Ramirez, 34, graphic designer with tattoos snaking up his arms like vines claiming a neglected wall. He'd been my rock since that rainy afternoon when he'd spilled his latte on my sketchbook at the cafe and laughed it off with an apology that turned into dinner, then dates, then this. I wanted to grab the keys to his beat-up Subaru and drive us to the courthouse, vows exchanged over vending machine coffee. But the haze in me, the part that still heard Dad's gravelly prayers at Sunday supper, couldn't shake the guilt. Alex and I had been thick as thieves once. What if this was his one shot at normalcy? What if showing up solo shattered him all over again? By the time we called a recess, the chapel had emptied into the vestibule, an awkward cocktail hour without the cocktails. Mom cornered me by the coat rack, her hands wringing a tissue into oblivion. Your brother wrote me letters from inside, Chris. About redemption, about coming home whole. He asked about you specifically, said he missed his little shadow. If we start without him. Her voice cracked, and for a second, I saw the woman who'd bandaged my scraped knees and sung me to sleep with Johnny Cash tunes, not the gatekeeper of my happiness. Mom, Alex hasn't called me once in 5 years. Not a letter, not a visit. He cut me out when I came out to you all. Remember? Don't drag the family down, Chrissy. That's his redemption. She flinched, but Dad was there in a flash, clapping a heavy hand on my shoulder. Water under the bridge. Man's paid his debt. Give him this. Mia hovered nearby, scrolling her phone to avoid eye contact, but I caught her whispering to Tyler. It's bullshit, right? They just hate Jason 'cause he's, you know, my kid sister, the unexpected ally in this mess. Her TikTok feed full of pride flags and ally memes she'd send me in secret. The morning dragged into noon, the rain turning to a relentless sheet that fogged the windows. Jason paced the brides, no, grooms, prep room, his cummerbund askew, while I fielded calls from the caterer and the florist, apologies piling up like unpaid bills. Every tick of the clock was a betrayal, each unanswered buzz from my phone a fresh wound. Why now? Why today? The pieces didn't fit, and that nagging itch, the one that said my family was hiding more than just a release date, started to fester. Finally, around 1, horns blared outside, a greyhound pulling up to the curb, disgorging passengers like reluctant refugees. Alex stepped off last, taller than I remembered, his frame gaunt under a threadbare jacket, beard scruffy, and eyes shadowed by the bill of a mariner's cap. He looked like a man who'd traded his youth for concrete walls and bad coffee. 32 now, same as me, but carrying a decade's worth of wear. Mom rushed out first, enveloping him in a hug that swallowed her whole, Dad pumping his hand like a long-lost business partner. Mia hung back, waving awkwardly, and then it was my turn. Alex's gaze met mine over Mom's shoulder, and for a split second, something flickered there. Not warmth, not quite resentment, but a weary recognition. Hey, little bro, he muttered, pulling me into a backslapping embrace that smelled of bus exhaust and stale cigarettes. Heard you got hitched today? Congrats. His voice was rough, like gravel under tires, but the word congrats landed soft, almost genuine. Jason hovered at the chapel steps, arms crossed, his polite smile not quite reaching his eyes. Introductions were made, stilted, surface level. This is Jason, my fiancé. Alex extended a hand, grip firm but fleeting. Heard a lot about you. Chris talks nonstop. Liar. We hadn't spoken since the trial, but the lie hung there, a fragile bridge over the chasm between us. Inside, the ceremony resumed in fits and starts. Alex slotted into the front pew like a puzzle piece forced into place. The officiant, a no-nonsense lesbian deacon from Jason's Unitarian Church, cleared her throat and powered through the readings, passages from Whitman and Rumi that suddenly felt too raw, too exposed under the weight of unspoken judgments. When it came time for objections, the air thickened, every guest holding their breath as if daring fate. No one spoke, but as Jason slipped the ring on my finger, a simple silver band etched with coordinates from our first hike up Rattlesnake Ledge, the dam broke. Dad stood abruptly, chair scraping like an accusation. This ain't right, Christopher. Not with your brother fresh out. We came to stop it, to wait proper, but seeing you too. It's a slap in the face to everything we built. The chapel fell silent, save for the drip of rain from a leaky gutter. Jason's face paled, his hand trembling in mine, and I felt the old rage bubble up, the kind that had driven me from Oregon at 27, suitcase in hand and heart in shreds. Built? You mean the lies? The prayers for my cure? Alex is out, great. But this is my life, Dad, not your redemption arc. Alex rose then, slow and deliberate, his presence commanding the room like he still owned the family narrative. Let him marry Pop. It's their day. His words were quiet, but they carried the authority of someone who'd stared down worse than family drama, cell blocks and shank fights, whispers of regret in the dead of night. Dad whirled on him, face reddening. You of all people should know better. That night in the bar, it was over this kind of thing. Defending some queer kid from a beating, and look where it got you. 5 years gone. You want your brother chasing the same road. The room gasped collectively, puzzle pieces slamming into place. Alex's jaw tightened, his eyes flicking to me, not with anger, but with a raw, unguarded plea. That queer kid was me, Dad. I was the one in the corner, holding hands with a guy under the table. The redneck saw, started swinging. I swung back to protect us both, and you let him spin it like I was the monster. Time stopped. Mom's hand flew to her mouth, a strangled sob escaping. Mia's phone clattered to the floor. Jason's grip on me turned vice-like, his whisper fierce. Holy shit, Chris. And me? I stared at my brother, the man I'd idolized and then mourned as lost, seeing him for the first time. Not the straight-arrow logger's son, but a mirror of my own hidden fractures. You're. The words died in my throat, but Alex nodded, the weight of 5 unspoken years crashing down. Gay? Yeah, kept it buried till I couldn't. Inside, it ate me alive. Letters I wrote to you, but never sent. Nights staring at the bars wishing I'd come out sooner. When Mom told me about you and Jason over a prison call last month, I knew I had to get out. Not just for me, for you. Betrayal bloomed in Dad's eyes, hot and immediate. You lied to us. All those visits, the talks about straightening up. Because you made me. Alex's voice cracked, the first real emotion breaking through his prison-hardened shell. You preached fire and brimstone, Dad. Called it a sin. So I hid. Fought. Ended up paying for it. And now you're doing the same to Chris? Over my dead body. The confrontation spilled out into the rain-slicked street, family fracturing under the downpour like wet paper. Mom wept against the chapel wall, pleading for us to just talk it out like hazes do. Dad stormed off toward his truck, muttering about the devil's work, Mia trailing after him with a look that screamed apology. Jason and I stood shoulder to shoulder, soaked and shivering, while Alex lingered, his cap pulled low. Why didn't you tell me? I asked, voice barely audible over the storm. In all those years. Alex shrugged, rain tracing paths down his cheeks that might have been tears. Shame's a hell of a warden, little bro worse than any cell. But seeing you here, fighting for this, made me want to fight too. We didn't finish the ceremony that day. The officiant packed up her notes, guests dispersed with hugs, and call me later, that felt like lifelines. Jason drove us back to our apartment in silence, his hand on my knee the whole way, a quiet promise that we weren't broken. Inside, over mugs of chamomile tea that tasted like regret, he held me as the sobs came, for the brother I'd lost and found, for the parents who'd chosen fear over flesh and blood. That night, as Seattle's skyline glittered beyond our window like a defiant constellation, Jason pulled me onto the couch, his arms a sanctuary. We're okay, he murmured, lips brushing my temple. You and me against the wreckage. Always. But the wreckage had only just begun to burn. The days blurred into a haze of fallout, each one heavier than the last. Alex crashed on our pull-out couch, a temporary exile from the family home in Oregon that Dad had barred him from crossing. Not until you sort yourself, the old man had growled over speakerphone, his voice tinny and distant as a bad connection. Mom mediated from the sidelines, her calls a litany of apologies laced with pleas. Give him time, boys. Your father's heart is in the right place. He just doesn't know how to say it. Time. As if love came with an expiration date, or a grace period for bigotry to mellow like overripe cheese. Jason threw himself into work, sketching mood boards for a gallery show that suddenly felt trivial, his sketches turning darker, shadowed figures reaching through bars, hands entwined in defiance. I'd catch him staring at the fridge, where our half-finished wedding invite mocked us from under a magnet shaped like the Space Needle. Me? I dove into the freelance editing gigs that barely paid the rent, words blurring on the screen as my mind replayed the chapel scene on loop. Alex's confession had cracked me open, exposing fault lines I didn't know ran so deep. We'd spend evenings on the fire escape, splitting a six-pack of Rainier while he filled in the blanks of his prison years. Not the Hollywood grid of shank fights and gang tattoos, but the quieter cruelties. The isolation of hiding who you are in a place that chews up vulnerability like chum. First year was hell, he'd say, nursing a beer, the city hum a distant lullaby. Kept my head down, worked the library detail. Read everything, Steinbeck, Baldwin, even that wild guy. Made me see how I'd been lying to myself my whole life. Thought if I played straight, Dad'd be proud. Instead, I lost everything. I'd nod, the parallels stinging like salt in a fresh cut. My own coming out at 25 had been a bloodless coup. A letter left on the kitchen table before I bolted for Seattle, followed by radio silence broken only by Mom's occasional check-ins. "We're praying for you, son." Alex had been the hammer then, his pre-prison phone call a gut punch. "Don't make waves, Chris. Family's all we got." Now, waves crashed everywhere. Mia texted daily, a lifeline of teenage rebellion. Dad's being a total caveman. Mom cried all night. I told them Alex is cooler than ever. "Miss you guys." Red heart. She'd even snuck us a care package. Oregon Trail mix and a mixtape of her indie pics, scribbled liner notes reading, "For the grooms who didn't get their dance." But the real storm brewed in the silences. Jason started pulling away, not with anger but exhaustion. Late nights at the studio, mornings where he'd kiss my cheek and murmur, "Gonna grab coffee solo today." I knew the signs. We'd danced this tango before, back when my family drama first poisoned our bubble. "It's not you," he'd insist when I'd press. But his eyes said otherwise. The weight of loving a man whose bloodline came with so many asterisks. One evening, 3 weeks post-dash, I came home to find Alex hunched over his laptop, borrowed from Jason, who was out for a run. The screen glowed with old emails, printouts from his prison counselor about reintegration therapy. "Ever think about going back?" he asked, not looking up. "To Klamath Falls." Facing him down. The idea curdled in my stomach. "And say what?" "Hey, folks, double the gay for your money. Come to the Pride Parade?" Sarcasm was my shield, but Alex saw through it, his laugh a rusty hinge. "Nah, say you're done hiding." Like I should have been. He closed the laptop, leaning back with a sigh that carried the scent of cheap soap and second chances. "I wrote Dad a letter from inside, admitting it all. He burned it," Mom said, "but I kept copies. For days like this." He slid a manila envelope across the coffee table, edges frayed like old wounds. Inside, pages of tight, slanted script, Alex's voice leaping off the paper. Confessions of bar hookups in Portland, the terror of discovery, the bar fight not as rage but desperate protection. "I love you, Dad," one line read. "Even if you can't love this part of me, teach me how." Tears blurred the ink. "Mine this time. You never sent these to me? Figured you'd hate me for bailing when you needed backup. After you came out, I was ashamed. Thought if I could just man up, it'd fix us all." We sat there till midnight, the envelope a talisman between us, brothers bridging the gulf with truths too long submerged. When Jason finally slipped in, damp from more than a run, his eyes red-rimmed, excuses mumbled about a client meltdown, I pulled him into bed, Alex crashing on the couch without a word. Sleep evaded me, Jason's back a wall I didn't know how to scale. In the dark, doubts whispered. Was this what love looked like? Collateral damage piling up like unpaid therapy bills? By dawn, resolve hardened. We'd elope, quiet, on our terms. No chapels, no crowds. Just us, the officiant via Zoom if needed, and maybe Alex as witness. A middle finger to the Hayes legacy, wrapped in wildflowers and whispered vows. But secrets have a way of unraveling at the seams. The next afternoon, while Jason was at a design meetup in Belltown, I rifled through his sketchbook for inspiration, a habit from our early days, when his art was our love language. Tucked between pages of fractured skylines was a crumpled note, handwriting I didn't recognize. Can't keep pretending. Meet me. Let's talk real. R. Ryan. No, his ex from New York, the one who'd ghosted him after a messy breakup involving too much gin and not enough closure. My heart jackhammered as I pieced it together. The late nights, the distance. Betrayal, sharp as a switchblade, sliced through the fragile peace we'd built. Confrontation came at dusk, Jason walking in with takeout bags swinging like alibis. What's this? I thrust the note at him, voice cracking like thin ice. His face drained of color, bags hitting the floor with a greasy thud. Chris, it's not. Ryan? After everything? You said he was ancient history. The words tumbled out, laced with venom I didn't know I possessed. Alex hovered in the kitchen doorway, silent sentinel, but this was our battlefield. Jason sank onto the couch, head in hands. He reached out last month, flying through Seattle for work. Wanted coffee, to clear the air. I went. Once. To end it proper. His eyes met mine, pleading. Nothing happened. Swear on my abuela's rosary. But yeah, it stirred shit up. Old doubts, what ifs. With your family exploding. I got scared we'd end up like that. Fractured. Scared. The word hung between us, a chasm wider than the sound. So you run to the guy who broke you? Instead of me. Alex cleared his throat, stepping forward. Give him space. Bro, prison 101. Accusations without proof just build more walls. But I was done with walls. Space? That's what got us here. Space for lies, space for phases and burned letters. I grabbed my keys, storming out into the drizzle, the city swallowing me whole. Hours later, holed up in a dive bar off Aurora, nursing a whiskey that burned less than the ache in my chest, my phone buzzed. Mia, Dad's having a breakdown. Alex showed up at the house, big fight. Mom called 911, but it's okay. He's okay. Come home. Home. The word mocked me as I paid the tab and hailed a lift, the driver's small talk a blur. By the time I reached the family manse, a rambling rancher on the outskirts of Klamath Falls, 3 hours south, I was soaked through, resolve fraying like wet rope. The driveway was lit like a crime scene, cop cars idling with lights off, Mom on the porch wrapped in a quilt, her face a map of exhaustion. He just snapped, she whispered as I climbed the steps. Alex came to talk, handed your dad those letters. Robert read one, aloud, voice shaking. Then he threw the lamp, yelled things about us all going to hell. Inside, Dad sat at the kitchen table, knuckles white around a coffee mug, Alex across from him like a deposed king. Mia peeked from the hallway, eyes puffy. No Jason, he'd stayed in Seattle, a text confirming, love you. Fix this. I'm here. Chris, Dad rasped, not meeting my gaze. Your brother's spinning tales, saying he's, like you, that the fight was over some boy. Lies to cover his mess. Alex's laugh was bitter, hollow. Read the letters, old man. Or the trial transcripts Mom hid in the attic. I was seeing a guy, Mark. Bartender at that dive. The redneck was his ex, jealous and loaded. I protected what mattered. And you let the cops paint me as the aggressor because Hayes boys don't bend that way. Dad's mug shattered in his grip, ceramic shards scattering like shrapnel. Blood welled from his palm, stark against the formica, and Mom gasped, rushing with towels. But he didn't flinch, eyes finally lifting to mine, raw, stripped of armor. If it's true, what VE done? Pushed you both away. For what? Pride? Church? God forgive me. The room tilted, years of resentment dissolving in that broken admission. Alex reached across, clasping Dad's wrist, not in anger, but forgiveness I wasn't sure I could muster yet. You did what you thought right. Now do better. We talked till dawn, words pouring like the rain that had followed me south. Apologies, accusations, the slow thaw of understanding. Dad admitted the prison visits where he'd preached tough love, masking his own terror of losing sons to a world he didn't comprehend. Mom confessed burning Alex's letters out of protection, fearing they'd corrupt me. Mia mediated with teenage bluntness. You're all idiots, but I love you. Deal with it. By sunrise, tentative peace settled, fragile as eggshell. Dad shook Alex's hand, then mine, voice gruff. That wedding. If it's what you want, son, we'll be there. Proper. Back in Seattle 2 days later, Jason waited at the airport, sign in hand like our first date. Mr. Hayes Ramirez, your chariot awaits. We collapsed into each other, laughter mingled with tears, the note forgotten in the flood of relief. But peace, I've learned, is just the calm before the deeper currents pull you under. 2 months later, the rescheduled wedding loomed like a beacon or a guillotine, depending on the hour. We'd pared it down. Backyard affair at Tyler's Queen and Victorian, string lights and picnic tables under the madrona trees, a playlist curated by Mia with equal parts Patsy Cline and Hosier. Guest list? Intimate. 50 souls who'd weathered our storms, plus the Hayes contingent on probationary invite. Dad and Mom arrived early, bearing pies from the old diner in Klamath. Apple for Alex, cherry for me, a peace offering wrapped in wax paper. Alex had brokered the truce, driving down with them, his presence a buffer against old triggers. He's trying, he'd texted me en route. Asked about Jason's art. Called it inspiring. Miracles do happen. Jason, ever the optimist, greeted them with hugs that lingered a beat too long, his charm disarming even Dad's residual gruffness. Robert, you gotta see the sketches for the vows. Chris had me illustrate M like a storybook. Dad grunted approval, peering at the folios over coffee, while Mom fussed over centerpieces, her hands steady for the first time in years. Me? I floated through prep like a ghost, second-guessing every detail. The suit, charcoal slim fit from that tailor in Fremont, felt like armor, but doubts gnawed. Would Dad balk at the recessional, our hands linked openly? Would Alex's fresh-out scars show in a toast that cut too deep? And Jason, after the Ryan shadow, had we truly mended, or was it duct tape over a fault line? The ceremony unfolded under a canopy of September sun, Seattle's famously fickle weather holding court just for us. Tyler officiated, his beard trimmed and voice warm as he wove our story. Christopher and Jason didn't choose the easy path, the one with picket fences and zero drama. They chose the raw one, the one that demands you fight for every sunrise. Vows came next, Jason steady as bedrock. You taught me home isn't a place, Chris. It's the guy who brings you soup at 2 a.m. and laughs at your bad puns. I choose you, wreckage and all. Mine faltered, throat tight. Jason, you saw me when I was invisible, even to myself. You're my compass, my chaos. Forever starts now. Rings exchanged, kiss sealed with cheers that shook the leaves, then the toast round, where fault lines cracked wide. Dad stood first, glass raised, his flannel swapped for a button-down that strained at the shoulders. Folks, I ain't good with words. Raised my boys on actions. Logs felled, lessons learned the hard way. Pauses, sips of Chardonnay to steady. I failed them. Saw sin where there was just love, differently shaped, but real as the rogue running high. Eyes on me, glistening. To Christopher and Jason, may your road be smoother than mine. And if it ain't, fight like hell. That's the Hayes way. Applause thundered, Mom dabbing tears, Mia whooping from her table of teen friends. Alex went next, his speech a quiet gut punch. Prison strips you bare, leaves you with mirrors you can't escape. Mine showed a brother I should have stood by, a family I let fear fracture. Chris, you marrying today? That's the redemption I chased for 5 years. Jason, keep him laughing. He forgets to, sometimes. Laughter rippled, but his eyes held mine, a nod sealing our reboot. The reception kicked off with abandon, dancing on the lawn to Ho Hey, and first day of my life, Mia dragging Dad into a clumsy two-step that had everyone howling. Jason and I stole moments, his hand at my waist during Wonderwall, whispers promising honeymoons in the San Juans. For those hours, it felt invincible, love as rebellion won, family as reluctant allies. But dusk brought the undercurrent. As guests thinned, Alex pulled me aside by the fire pit, sparks dancing like fireflies. Got something for you. He pressed a small box into my palm, velvet, worn. Inside, a pair of cufflinks, silver with engraved coordinates. The bar in Portland, where it all went south. Figured it'd remind you. Scars make the story, not break it. Emotion choked me. Thanks, man. For everything. He clapped my shoulder, grin crooked. Don't get sappy. Go find your husband. Husband. The word thrilled, even as a shadow crossed his face. Hey, about Dad. He's solid now, but watch your back. Old habits die hard. Dismissed it as post-prison paranoia, but the seed lodged. Later, buzzed on Pinot and cake, I overheard Mom on the porch, phone to ear. Yes, Reverend, it's done. But pray for them, Alex too. The devil's sneaky. Harmless? Or the first fracture in the mend. Honeymoon was bliss distilled. Cabin on Orcas Island, kayaks at dawn, nights tangled in flannel sheets with the Salish sea-lapping lullabies. Jason sketched me by the wood stove, charcoals capturing the new lines around my eyes. Happy wear, he called it. We talked futures, adopting a mutt from the shelter, Maybe fostering kids like Mia once was. Our own little insurgency, he'd joke, fingers tracing my ring. Reality intruded on week 2, a voicemail from Tyler. Hey, grooms. Hope you're not skinny dipping. Call me. Family stuff. Heart sinking, I dialed back. Alex had vanished. Left a note at the house. Need space. Back soon. Dad was raging, accusing him of running from God. Mom mediating with frantic calls. Ryan, Jason's ex, had emailed innocuous work query, but Dad intercepted it on a shared family Google Drive, spinning it into proof the lifestyle invites trouble. Paranoia peaked when we returned. Alex's duffel gone from our spare room. Phone straight to voicemail. Searches turned up nothing. No bar tabs on his card. No bus ticket south. Dad confessed over emergency coffee clutch. I told him to shape up or ship out. Again, after the wedding high wore off. Couldn't stomach it. Betrayal anew, sharper for the hope it had killed. Jason held me through the fury, his own guilt resurfacing. This is on me too. Dragging you into my mess with Ryan made you doubt. No, I assured him. It was the haze poison, generational and deep. We launched a manhunt. Posters in Portland dives, alerts to his old logging buddies. Even a PI on retainer from Jason's gallery windfall. Weeks stretched, each dead and a fresh bruise. Mia visited, bunking with us, her presence a spark. Uncle Alex is tough. He'll surface. Meanwhile, teach me to drive stick. Life limped on. Work promotions for Jason. A book deal nibble for my edits. But the hole gaped. Then, 6 weeks in, a postcard. Klamath Falls postmark. No return address. Forgive the ghosting. Sorting headspace. Love you both. Tell me a hi? A coordinates scrawled on back. A trailhead in the Siskius. Relief ward with wariness. Trap. Jason wondered, but I knew better. Alex was calling us home, on his terms. The drive south was tense, evergreens blurring into memory. At the trailhead, dusk settling like a bruise, we hiked the mile to a clearing, picnic site from boyhood summers, fire ring cold but waiting. Alex sat there, back to a pine, journal in lap. Thinner, bearded deeper, but eyes clear. Thought you'd ghost for good, I said, dropping the cooler with a thud. He rose, hugging us fierce. Almost did. Hit a bar in Eugene. Woke up in a cell, drunk and disorderly. Flashback city. Decided I needed solo time, not family drama. Glanced at Jason. Sorry for the scare. And congrats, for real. You're good for him. Campfire crackled stories late. His odd jobs in Medford. Therapy sessions uncovering layers of suppressed rage. Dad's call pushed me. Said the wedding was a phase we'd regret. I bailed to prove him wrong. To myself. Dawn brought decisions. Alex staying in Oregon, rebuilding with Dad's reluctant blessing. Weekly coffees, no sermons. Us. Back to Seattle, fortified. But the real climax brewed back home. A letter from Mom. Dad's cancer diagnosis, stage 3, pancreas. He wants to see you boys. Make peace proper. The call to arms. Family as battlefield. Love as the only weapon. Dad's decline was a masterclass in fragility. The man who'd felled redwoods reduced to a hospital bed in Klamath's community clinic. Tubes snaking like accusations. We drove down every weekend. Jason and I tag-teaming shifts with Alex and Mia. Mama Ghost haunting the corridors with styrofoam coffee. First visit, Dad gripped my hand, skin paper thin. Should have stopped that wedding proper. He wheezed, half joke, half confession. Would have saved us all this. Laughter escaped, bitter. Nah, Pop. It saved us. Jason nodded from the doorway, his presence a quiet revolution. Drawing caricatures for Dad's tray, tales of Brooklyn bodegas to distract from the chemo fog. Alex took the night watches, brothers bonding over vending machine snacks, dissecting the man who'd shaped us crooked. He loved us, in his way. Alex said one midnight, for beeps a metronome. Just scared of anything that didn't fit the mold. Scared enough to burn letters? Lock you out. Resentment lingered, but softened by the sight of Dad's Bible on the nightstand, margins filled with underlined psalms. Love is patient, love is kind, circled in fresh ink. Jason and I snatched moments in the hospital garden, benches under aspens shedding gold. This is it, huh? He'd murmur, head on my shoulder. The romantic peak, waiting rooms, and wilted flowers. I'd kiss his temple, tasting salt. Nah, it's us, holding through the ugly. That's the real vow. Misunderstandings peaked mid-October, a nurse overhearing Dad's ramblings, muttering about curses and sins of the fathers, leaking to the local paper via a gossip mill churn. Headline: Logging Legacy. Homosexuality linked to family tragedy? Klamett's conservative underbelly erupted. Protests at the clinic, hate mail to mom, Alex fielding slurs from old crewmates. Climax hit during a family summit in Dad's room, machines humming like jury. A pastor buddy of his, firebrand from the old church, barreled in, Bible thumping. Robert, renounce it. The boy's choice, it's killing you. Repent. Dad's eyes flashed, weak but fierce. Get out, Harlan. Ain't no curse. My sons are men, good ones. Loving wrong? Bull. It's me who wronged him. Voice gaining steam, he turned to us. Alex, Chris, forgive an old fool. Pushed you 'cause I feared losing you to a world I didn't get. But losing you now? Worse than this. Hand out, encompassing the bed, the beeps. Mary who makes you whole. That's God's grace, not wrath. Pastor stormed out, but the room held. Tears, embraces, Mia snapping a photo. For the album. Proof we're okay. Dad even cracked a smile at Jason. Kid, your drawings? Better than any sermon. Rally cry lit a fire. Alex organized a counter-story for the paper, op-ed on redemption, family over dogma, pinned with Mia's social media savvy. Protests fizzled, locals trickling in with pies and prayers minus the pitchforks. Dad stabilized enough for hospice at home, us rotating through, turning the rancher into a haven. November brought the turn, Dad slipping fast, lucid hours rare. One evening, as snow dusted the pines, he called us in. All four. Me, Jason, Alex, Mia, plus Mom at his side. Wrote something, he rasped, nodding to the dresser. Envelope, sealed with wax from Mom's old candle. To my boys. Alex read aloud, voice steady. Tales of his youth, hidden crushes on high school track stars, a logging camp fling buried deep. Regrets over silence when I came out. Pride in our guts to live true. Ended. Love ain't straight lines or sermons. It's the bend that holds. Be bent, be broken, but be together. Yours, Dad. He passed at dawn, snow blanketing the world soft. Funeral was Quaker simple. Potluck at the community hall, eulogies from loggers who'd softened, hymns sung off-key but heartfelt. Dad's plot overlooked the rogue. Eternal watch on the river that shaped us. Grief bound us tighter. Alex moving to Klamath permanent, restoring the old cabin with Mia's weekend help. Mom selling the house, relocating to a Seattle condo near us. Her knitting circles now pride knit. Jason and I, we danced our first married dance at a holiday party, to At Last. His laugh in my ear the sweetest rebellion. But the deepest cut healed slowest. In Dad's effects, a burned fragment from Alex's letter, salvaged and taped. I love you, even if. Proof he'd tried, once, to bridge. Spring bloomed forgiveness. We scattered his ashes on that Siskiyou trail, coordinates etched in our rings now. Alex met a guy, quiet carpenter named Eli, at a recovery group, first date burgers and hesitations. Think I can do this? He asked over beers. Brother, I said, clinking bottles, you already are. Jason and I adopted that mutt, scruffy lab mix named Rogue, and fostered a teen, wide-eyed kid named Sam, fresh from conversion therapy horrors. Our home echoed with chaos. Barks, laughter, Mia's visits turning sleepovers. One anniversary eve, rooftop under Seattle stars. Jason pulled me close, city pulse below. Remember the chapel? Felt like the end. I smiled, tracing his jaw. Was the beginning. Us against the prisoners, inside and out. He kissed me slow, world fading. In that moment, wind-whipped, heart-scarred but whole, love wasn't drama or redemption. It was quiet victory, humanistic and hard-won. Family redefined, not by blood, but by the grace to bend. And we did.